Hi, this is Tony Ruggiero here on The Tour Coach. Thanks for joining in and thanks for following along. It is my mission to bring you some of the best instructors, the players, mental coaches, fitness experts, everything you need to play better golf, all of the people I find fascinating that can give you information to help you in your pursuit as a teacher or as a player. It's all here on DewsweeperTV or wherever it is you get your podcast. Thanks for watching the Tour Coach podcast, and hopefully this helps you teach better, play better, and enjoy the game. So here we are, Tour Coach. This is his maiden voyage on the Tour Coach. And it's totally remiss on my part that we have not had him on before, because he's one of my favorite humans that I've ever been to any type of conference with. He's one of the only people that understands my humor, I think, actually. But he's a legend in the instruction business. He's one of the great teachers in the game. I'm up in New York. The Honger, James Hong. What the heck are you doing? And thanks for staying up with me while I have a glass of wine and we take this podcast.
I'm right there with you.
See, that's what I like about you. You're so dependable.
Okay, we're done.
All right. Everybody join us next week for another great edition. So I want to talk about, when I started the radio show about almost 20 years ago, you never start things out thinking they'll ever turn into anything sometimes, right?
Right.
And the radio show got going and we ended up on PGA Tour Radio. And in fact, I always modeled myself after Peter Kessler. You remember Peter?
Oh, yeah.
Right. In fact, Peter and I are going to do a podcast here soon. But, like Golf Academy Live, where you brought in a great teacher and you helped just regular golfers. I always thought that was the beauty of that. Right.
Yeah.
I remember those clips of Butch with him and all that. And I think sometimes when I read golf and I read Golf Digest, or I watch some of the stuff out there, we get away from helping recreational golfers and regular golfers and developing players. And everything gets to be like quick tips, quick this. Let's talk about really developing players and really helping golfers that come to you or I. It doesn't matter to me to saw some at Old Palm today. It doesn't matter to me if you're a 25 or a tour player and you're wanting to get better. I want to help you. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. What are your thoughts on that? What are some of the keys for those types of folks getting better?
Yeah. Sometimes what I notice with a lot of players is that they're a lot better than they realize, but sometimes it's bad information or misconception of certain ideas. And when you start to put them on the straight and narrow, they become sort of enlightened. It's like sometimes I've had players who think they're terrible or their scores show that they're a high handicap, but then we go over something like, well, what do you when you're doing this or when you're going over that, what kind of goes through your head and everything? Oh, well, I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of that, or I was told to do this, and it's like, oh, okay, well, if you thought maybe it's this way, and they're like, oh, no, and then they do it, and it's like, oh, my goodness, they're so much better. And it's those kind of things click in right away. So that's always one of the things I'm looking for, is just exactly what's going on in their heads.
What are some of the misconceptions in their head that you find? I'm curious to hear from you, because you deal with, like me, I teach some really good players. I'm very fortunate. I still gain a lot of enjoyment just for standing on that tee helping anybody, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, because you do such a great job. What are some of the common misconceptions? I know I hear some things, some of the shit that comes out of their head, and you're like,
yeah,
I don't know about that. What are some of your common misconceptions you hear and we can educate people with?
Well, one thing is a lot of times players don't know where the target is, where they think the target is not where it is. And I've had a lot of people, I always tell the story about this one guy. He still comes to me all these years, and he was hitting balls on the range, and I was watching him going oh my God, that's the best I've seen him swing.
Right.
And at that time he was probably about a 20 handicap, and it was he's looking so good. But then I also noticed that he'd hit a ball. The ball had this nice little 5-yard draw, and he'd be looking down going shaking his head. I was like, why is he shaking his head? That's pure. And I watched him hit 6 or 7 balls like that. And then I went up to him. It's like, Steven, what's wrong? He's like, those balls are so far right. I'm like, what are you talking about? and then he hits another 2. See what I mean? Stephen, can you just tell me where you think the target is right now?
Yeah.
And he's literally pointing 60 yards left on the range. He's pointing to the left side of our range when he's lined up at the 150 sign on the right side of the range. And I'm going, that's like, I put a club down on the ground. I said, do you see where you're lining? He's looking, it's like, oh my God, that feels like it's way right. Nope. And guess what his miss is? It's, he's aim right, pull it left, come over the top. And that was the thing about it, is he was hitting balls, and there was not even a hint of over the top, but he thought he was hitting it way right. So that's one misconception. And I see a lot of people coming up to me with that. Of course, the tips that they're either getting from their husbands or their relatives or whatever, straight left arm or keep your head down, all that kind of stuff. We've all heard.
How do you deal with that? And as I get older, my patience wears more thin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And I was driving around the other day, the chipping green at Old Palm, and I saw 2 people. I saw a guy who had been like a 28 handicap giving a chipping lesson to a guy who was a 30.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? Right. Like, how do you deal? And I think it's worse now than we were coming up with all the information that's out there, because now you don't just have the 15 or 12, 20 handicappers reading Golf or Golf Digest and then going to give tips. Now they can go on the phones and they can look on Instagram and they can look on whatever and dial up a tip. How do you deal with that? And better yet, how can we educate golfers how to use this shit better?
Yeah.
To get better.
I think what I'll point out to people, I'll try to be politically correct about it, and I'll just say
why?
Like,
why?
Why? Yeah, there are times where I just shake my head and just go like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like you see something there where, maybe they just need a good piece of advice or whatever. And, the good side of me just goes, let's be politically correct. Let's be correct here. And I'll just tell them, that's not necessarily a bad tip. I just don't think that fits you.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be like, what do you mean by that? And being that way, sort of lending out the olive branch, it's like now it opens up the conversation. Well, that tip's good for someone who does this and this and this, but that doesn't seem to be your issue. You seem to do that, that. And they're like, oh, and then if you really catch on to what it is that they're doing, you can even predict. It's like, well, I bet you're probably suffering from this and this. Like, how did you know?
Right.
Now it's like you've got them. You're starting to reel them in, and then they're more susceptible to listening to what you're going to say. Say, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? So that's one thing that I noticed. Sometimes it's you do get really frustrated and you throw your hands up in the air, roll your eyes, and in those circumstances, it's usually I can get a sense that this person's not going to listen to me anyway. So, what the hell? I'll just light some fire to the gasoline and go like, well, yeah, you keep doing that. Like you just said that the example of the 28 handicap helping out the 30. It's like, well, the good news is you're going to be a 28 handicap real soon, like he is. You keep at it. And sometimes I'll say something like that, and they don't even realize that they think I'm complimenting them. It's like,
well, it's my old mentor, you say, going along with what you kind of alluded to, was he used to say, if you could answer the student's question, like, how students come in with a preconceived notion of this is what I'm doing. If you could answer that, fix that, and they're still not better, and then show them what to do, you got them to buy in.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I've learned. Like, early on, I was just like, I'd film people, I'd sit them down and I'd go through my shit and I had my little spiel. But now it's like I listen more and I'm like, yeah. Okay, so you do that. Well, let's address that. And then they see that, but well, now actually here is what's happening that makes you do that. And then they buy in.
Exactly.
I think that's one thing you got to do. Don't you think, like with players, because I think golfers, I use this term lightly, but I think they're smarter now than they've ever been because there's so much info out there. They may not all understand it.
Right.
And I don't know that all of us teachers understand it, but there's so much info out there. You've got to be able to explain stuff, and you've got to be able to, you got to be able to get on their level, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think what happens is people will get on YouTube or Instagram or something, and they'll see a quick video, and they just automatically assume that one thing fits every single golfer in the world.
Right.
And they don't realize, like I said, they don't realize it probably is the worst thing for them. May actually be the best thing for their friend, but not for them.
Right.
And that's why one is doing well and the others are. And so just getting across the idea of, look, that may be great for someone else. It just doesn't fit you. And here's the reason why. And you pinpoint those things, and they kind of look at you and they open up their ears a little bit more. It's like, yep, that happened to me the other day. You're right.
Yeah, I always use this, and I'll quit talking about my old mentor. He used the analogy one time that, and I've said it ad nauseum on this podcast, but if you go into the drugstore and you take one of everything on the shelf, you probably get sick and die. But if you went in there and you took the right 4 things for whatever your issue was, you'd get better. And that's how people are on social media with golf instruction. They go in there and they just take everything instead of knowing what's the right 2, 3, 4 things for what they've got, And if they take everything, they're going to die as a golfer. They're going to be one of those people. I saw a guy the other day on the range hit 2 or 3 balls and just chunk a fucking club down the range. And they weren't even really that bad at shots. So he was obviously not doing what he thought he was doing, right?
Yeah.
And you just watch people. I'm curious because you deal with so many good juniors. I love following your stuff but one of the things I've found interesting as I've gotten older is helping people learn a little bit how to practice.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't think they but they don't have a clue. How to practice. And they for sure don't know how really good players practice, right? How do you help players practice, and what are some of the keys for that?
Yeah, I try to get across. It's the old 30-minute lesson is not going to take 15 strokes off of your handicap. It's
right.
You got to work at it. And so, but I also understand that a lot of people, the reality sets in. It's they have families, they have jobs and other responsibilities. And so working with those type of people, I tried to get across to them, hey, listen, I understand you're not going to be able to hit 300 balls, but you can do really well hitting 20. Mm-hmm. And just showing them, here's what you do. Hit 5 balls this way, 5 balls that way, and just kind of piecemealing it together, holding their hand and walking them through it. I think a lot of golfers, part of the problem of why they don't practice correctly is because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So they just go to the range, they dump out a basket of balls, and they hope the hand of God is going to touch them with the magic of golf. And then they're walking back to their car.
Grand piece right there. The hand of God's going to touch them in practice.
Yeah, and it's like they walk back to the car even more frustrated. And what happens? That happens over and over again. They're getting less and less motivated to come to the range and practice at all. And so just showing them what a good, simple practice routine is, and following up and asking them like a week later, 2 weeks later, hey, did that help you out? Oh my goodness, you were so right. Just doing that for 10 minutes, just doing that for 30 minutes really helped a lot. And now I understand they start to kind of like put their toe in the door of what it really means to work at something. But plus they get motivated because they see actual improvement just by being led in the correct direction.
I've had the same type of success with giving players stuff to do at home, away from the golf course with a band or a drill, right? And we use this example all the time. Wayne Flynn, I know you know Wayne from all this stuff we've all done together, and this is a pretty funny story. He had this guy, obviously in Alabama, big Fox News listener, right? Right? And so this guy didn't have much time to practice, but the guy had crazy tight hips. And so Wayne gave him a drill with a slider, and he said, look, I want you to do this every commercial during the Fox News, right? And, when you're sitting there and you're watching Hannity, I want you for the first commercial to do your right. Second commercial, I want you to do your left. And the guy was like, oh, you should. All right. Okay. So goes, 2 weeks later, he comes and Wayne's like, how's it going? He goes, oh, I've been doing it pulls up the video one to the next, and like it was a huge improvement in how the guy could rotate through. And I think that again is like you're this way because I watch stuff like our job is to be creative and find how to touch people, create and get them to practice a little better. And it's not always shit. It's not always just beating balls. There's ways we can help golfers get better with their movements and how they do stuff. And sometimes like giving a guy a pivot drill or a band drill or something that they can do in their office while they're on a Zoom call or whatever, it is going to help them get better. And then when they have some time, they can go down to your golf course and they can play 9 holes and actually play better and enjoy it.
Exactly. I mean, people that are sitting all day at their desks or checking out computer screens or whatnot, it's like just simple pivot drills, like you said, hip rotation, just hold on to the back of your chair or hold on to the edge of your desk.
Yeah,
and just do some rotations. It's like you're looking at the screen anyway in that position. You might as well do something, that'll help you while you're doing it. And yeah, I mean, I've had people at homes where I've said, instead of swinging a club, why don't you just take take some pillows and throw it into the futon and just see what it's like to throw something or to throw it throw it into the bottom of the futon, throw it into the top of the futon. And it's like all of a sudden we're talking about trajectory or, and they're, how high or how low they're hitting the ball based on how they're moving. It's like, yeah, you don't have to. I always remember that, what was it, the show on Golf Channel years ago, Breaking whatever. And it was the one with Haney and Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, wow.
And I remember at the end, why did Rush Limbaugh get better? And he said, I have no time to hit balls, but Haney told him to do 100 practice swings a day. And he stuck to that. And that alone made him better. So that always stuck with me, that those kind of things can definitely improve you if you just give it an effort.
Yeah. And again, I think too, curious on your thoughts of this, like everybody wants to put out, get better quick, this, that, the other. And we've talked a little about things you can do away from the golf course, but look, let's face it, the sport that we've chosen to embrace takes work to get better.
Yeah.
Right. And it's no different if I was trying to play quarterback for the Saints, who I seriously hope we drafted one that's better than what we got. But anyways, but like it takes work. And to expect to get better at the game of golf without, whether it's doing drills away from the golf course, like you were just talking to, like, and throwing pillows could be a drill or whatever. But like, if you're going to get better, you've got to structure some amount of time. Doesn't have to be at a golf course or at the golf course, some work to get better. Getting better is not going to happen by just one thought going out there and trying.
Yeah. If you're going to be doing that at the very best, you're going to be stagnant. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to get worse. Right? Yeah, but you're not really going to get better. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the work, and you've got to do some things. If nothing else, even if it's not technique, it's skill development. Something there that's going to get you 2 shots around, 3 shots around. Most people think improvement is, well, you know what? Last week I shot 100 and this week I shot 81. Boy, I got better. No, sometimes it's you shot 100 last week and you shot 90, 97 this week. You're getting better. And sometimes those incremental changes are going to last longer over your life than the immediate gratification.
I like to tell folks, like, if one of the things we tried to do, we've done at Old Palm, is like, look, if you work on this for a season, you can cut 20% off your handicap in a year, like, which is 20%. But like, for a 20 handicap, it's 4 shots, right?
Right.
That's a lot. But when you break it down like that and you talk about stuff you were talking about, like whether it's chipping, pitching, putting, it is very, very doable.
Yep.
Right. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, when a person comes to you and if you were looking at them like, hey, Joe Schmo, I want to cut 20% off your handicap, where would you go with them? Where would you look and what would you do?
I would probably be looking 50 yards and in. I would look at 2 extremes, 50 yards and in, and what they're doing off the tee boxes. And what I find off the tee box is it's the typical where they think they're aiming is not where they're aiming. I was like, how many times have I heard, hey, how many times have you heard this? You hit a ball into the trees and your buddies go, you were aiming there.
Yeah.
That was one.
How do you fix their aim?
What I'll do is I'll do everything from alignment sticks, but I also have this thing where I'll have them set up to a ball. And I'm like, tell me when you're ready to swing. They go, ready. Okay. And I'll cover their lead eye like this from the target. I say, can you take your left hand for a righty and point to where you think the target is? And it's amazing where that hand goes to.
Very interesting.
Right? It'll be all, I've seen people 70 yards left or 50 yards right. And when I show them where the target is, like I'll move their hand to where it is. It's like, what does that feel like to you? And like, oh my goodness, that feels like I'm hitting the guy's house. It's like, no, that's the center of the fairway, or that's the right set, whatever it is. That's one thing. And they'll be like, oh, is that why everyone tells me I'm aiming over there? Yeah, and that's why. And the other thing, kind of like decade golf is they're not playing their tendencies. They're pegging the ball up in the middle of the tee box and aiming at the dead center of the fairway when they have a 30-yard slice. It's like if you've got a 30-yard slice and it's generally 20 to 30 yards, aim to the left side of the fairway. At least you'll be hitting more fairways that way. And if you're in the rough or you're in trouble, it's probably going to be more like in the rough and not under a tree or out of bounds even. At least you're going to be maintaining, you're going to keep the ball in play. And from inside of 50 yards, it's just showing, I think what happens is they think that they should be hitting the ball to 6 inches like a tour player does, even though they don't have that ability. Question. And sometimes it's just telling them, get it on the green and give yourself a 2-putt. And whenever I'm working with people, I always say, here's your target score from here. Your target score is 3 or better. And some players, it's 4 or better. And for a lot of them, when I say, if you're in this situation on the golf course and you're going to get this ball in the hole in 3 shots, what did you get on the hole? And they'll say, I probably got a bogey. Well, how is that compared to what you normally do? It's, oh my God, this hole, I always get a 7 or an 8 on this hole. Yeah. And I've gone out there with players on the golf course for 3 or 4 holes and showed them this stuff. And they're like, you mean that's all I had to do? It's like, yeah, that's all you had to do. It's like, I never thought of it that way, but it's really simple. If you want to call it math or statistics or whatever, it's like, if you're in this situation, how many shots do you want at the very worst to get it in the hole? 3 shots, 2 shots, 4 shots, whatever it is, and play to that number.
Yeah, I always go back. I've told this story a bunch of times, but Mark Wood and I did a golf school down in Mexico. We had a couple couples down there. And this one lady was really probably never broken 100, realistically, right? Upper 90s at the best. And when we went on the course, I basically caddied for her. And that wine looks good, by the way, Honger. And but we got done with 9, and she shot 43. And all I did was, like, there was a hole with some marsh coming in and a bunker in front, and she can't carry it 170 yards, but she could run it 190. So I aimed her way out right, and she hit it, and then she pitched it up, and she made bogey, but she didn't make 6 or 7, right? Right. But she was a good chipper and putter. And, we navigated around that way. And, to his credit, Woody, who's been a huge mentor of mine, was a teacher of mine when I was in high school. And I'll never forget that moment being on the golf course with him when he was like, don't let her get in fucking trouble. That's basically what he was like, right? And it was like, we take people on the golf course all the time. And like, to me, that's a big part of helping people get better. It's like, it's not just your golf swing. I think you and I could take most of the people listening to us, especially if they're over 10 handicaps, and I almost would guarantee they would shoot 2, 3, 4, 5 at most shots better on a round if they hit the shots, if they let us pull the club and tell them the target and they hit it towards it.
It's like a very similar story to yours. I had one woman, we went out, I took her out for 9 holes, and she plays at our golf course all the time. I said, what's your lowest score on the front 9 here? And she goes 55. We go out, we're walking off of 9. She shot 45, 10 shots lower, a shot a hole. And I'm thinking she's going to be ecstatic. She's looking at me with this kind of look on her face of she's just not happy. I was like, hey, what's the matter, Susan? She goes, and he says, you just shot 10 shots lower than what you said was your low score. And she says, I felt like I was cheating. It was too easy. Because she's so ingrained with the sense that the game is a struggle. And she goes, it wasn't a struggle. It was too easy. It was almost like it was boring for her. Mm-hmm. And it was just like what you said. It's, hey, you're 170 yards out from the green, and you're not going to reach it. You can't hit your driver 170, but you're going to pull out your 3-wood, which you said you hate. It's instead of let's just hit a 6-iron and then put a pitching wedge on the green and then 2-putt. That's really what we did on every hole. And she said, oh, no, it was too easy. I felt like I was cheating. It was too easy. I've never had that where she actually walked away unhappy with the fact that we made the game easier for her.
Right.
So, and I see her every week there. She's like, hey, how are you? But I never bring it up because I know it should be like,
Yeah, but it's wild. But that's people's perception of how you're supposed to play.
Yep.
Right. And I think people, obviously they've been, we watch it on TV and they see tour players hit a drive and they go at the green. But, the interesting thing is you're with a tour player and they're in a situation where they've got to make below X number on a hole. I mean, you can look at Pebble Beach, 18, guy's got to win, and he can make 7 and still win. He hits 4-iron off the tee out there, hits something up, whatever. People only see the person having the bust driver, and I think that affects how they think about and what they think they need to do to play the best.
Yeah. And I know with juniors, I tell them whenever there's an event in the area, LPGA, PGA Tour, it's when you go on Tuesday, watch them practice or whatever, but don't just follow your favorite player or the top players. Look at the bottom, who's on the bottom.
Great advice.
And follow them and watch what it's like for those players, because don't be surprised if you're still seeing named players that are struggling to make the cut.
Right.
And go watch them play, or players that are not having a good season, and see what they're going through. And I get the same comments. Boy, these tour pros, they don't hit as many fairways as I thought they did. They didn't hit as many greens, but they knew how to recover. They knew what to do. And it's like, yeah. And even when they're practicing on the range, I get a lot of people saying they don't hit as many balls as I thought they did. And boy, you know what? It looked like they were working on the same stuff we're working on. So they get some more buy-in right there.
Yeah, and I think when people go watch, the feedback I get when folks I had a couple of folks that I teach go over to the Zurich last week, right, because it's not far from Mobile. And, I was like, well, what did you see? Well, we went by the range. Well, man, they all had stuff down for aim, going back to what you said a little bit ago about aim. And, and then I was like, well, it's important. And they're the best players in the world, and they struggle it. Maybe you that shoots 90 could put a club down and learn something from it. And and then the other thing was like, well, kind of what you were alluding to, like, they hit bad shots. But when they hit a bad shot, they don't seem to make it worse, is what one guy told me. And I think that's where they're vastly different than the recreational golfers. Like, they're really good at looking at the lie, looking at the situation, looking where the pin is, and what can I possibly do? And their skill set's vastly better than the folks we're talking about. And most of the time, they are more conservative with their approach than the 20 handicapper.
Yeah, right. It's exactly what you said, is because they remember that one ESPN highlight where somebody hit their 3-wood from 5-inch rough and somehow managed to get it up on the green, and they think, oh, I can do that. Or maybe they did it one time in their life, right, where the blind squirrel actually finds the nut, and they think, oh, now that I've done it once out of luck, I can do it forever.
Yeah.
And it's just not the case at all.
But I think, too, like, I've been fortunate with, Andy played on Live. I've watched Phil play a bunch of holes, and, everybody, and he's the one I always come to, like, everybody always thinks of his crazy flop shots and some of his crazy stuff, but you don't see the 14 other holes where he hits a bump and run.
Yeah.
And, or that he takes the easiest way. And I think, too, like, we see the, like you were talking about, we see the ESPN highlights of the guy, and those guys and those girls are amazing, short-sighted. But you also don't see that the 4 other people that hit it there put it in a bunker or didn't get it on the green.
Yep.
And, we're these people are talked into thinking that you're supposed to. And you had mentioned earlier about, talking about expectations and how close you're supposed to hit it. And it's amazing to me how far off recreational golfers, and I'm going to say anybody that's over a 5 whatever handicap, how close they think they're supposed to hit it from 100 yards.
Yep.
Like they think they're supposed to hit in the leather with a wedge.
Yep.
And they don't realize that a tour player, hits it 12, 15, 18 feet.
It's amazing sometimes when you ask them those questions, like, what do you think is the tour average from 8 feet in terms of putts made? All of these things.
Crazy different.
We've said it a million times to our players, our students, and they don't understand that. And I know, like with the Masters just a couple of weeks ago and the British Open coming up soon, I've told a lot of people, when you watch it on TV, don't watch how the players hit it and the ball's 35 feet from the hole and you hear the commentators going, great shot, wonderful.
Yeah,
right?
Great.
British Open, the ball will be, they'll bump and run it up and it'll be 20 feet away for par. They're trying to save par. It'll be 20 feet away and the crowd is going, great job, great job, great job. And wait a minute, aren't you supposed to hit it to 20 inches, to 20 centimeters? It's like, this is golf. You're not always going to do that.
Mm-hmm. It's a great lesson. Great lesson. And I think that, what we've talked about tonight, like today is really will help the vast majority, like understand. And if you go work on those shots and if you help, if we can help people understand how to play those shots from 60 yards, 70 yards, like if you hit it 25 feet, you got a shot to make it, but you're not going to make 6 or 7. Right. And my old friend, Peter Sanders, Shot by Shot Golf forever ago, but he used to come on the radio, but he used to always just harp on not making errors. Like if you're inside 100 or inside 50, get it on the damn green. That was his whole premise. Right.
Yeah.
And like you started looking at how many people make errors from that range. And it's shocking how many people from inside 50, 60, 70 yards don't get it on the green and how much they'd improve it. Even if they hit it 40, 30 feet, would be better players.
Yes, exactly. And I know for us where I work, whenever we do a short game series or golf school short game stuff, that's what we're just harping on constantly is like, just give yourself a chance. It's like, if you put it to within whatever it is, 20 feet, do you think you can 1 or 2 putt that? And, most of the players would be like, yes, I can. Right. If I don't have a brain fart or something like that, it's like, yeah, I'll be fine. And it's like, yeah. And so why aren't you just doing that? Yeah. Because you know what's going to happen?
We haven't had the word fart used on this podcast in at least 2-3 weeks.
And remember, it's a brain fart. So.
Well, good. So I feel better about that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's if you can get it, if you can hit it up there, you know what? You're going to get 1 to 3 feet every now and then. You're going to hit it to 20 feet every now and then. You're going to hit it to 12 feet every now and then. But you're giving yourself that range. And every single one of those shots that you're doing that, you're going to get 1 or 2 putts into the hole. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so how good is your score going to be? How much better is it going to be? And, right where we all teach at our golf course, on the side over there is the practice green. And you always get some of the juniors, for example, they're hitting fancy flop shots and whatnot. And every now and then I'll look over and I'll see them and I'll drop a ball and I'll just grab whoever's club, 5-iron, whatever it is, and just, hey, fellas, bump it up there. And the ball's just dribbling, rolls up to 15 feet, rolls up to 3 feet. And especially when it's a good one, I'll say, okay, you guys, fancy, 60-degree lob wedges there. See if you can get it inside of the ball I just chipped up there. And where I'm standing is about 30 to 50 yards away from the green as it is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what club would you use from here? And I'll just turn around and I'll just take every single club. I'll do the old Ben Hogan. I'll grab a club, just random clubs, and just bump it or chip it or pitch it and just say, you can use any club you want, right? Don't marry yourself to only a lob wedge and thinking it's supposed to be this either pretty flop shot or this checkup if one hop and stop shot. if you don't know how to hit it. If you want to hit that shot, practice it. And again, it goes back to what you were saying, is getting people to work on things. If you want to be good at that shot, work on it, work on it. Here's how you work on it. And it takes a lot of work. It takes effort. It takes time. But if you want to be able to be good at that, put in the work.
No question about it. No question about it. Honger, this was awesome. We need to make a vow here in 2025 to have you on more to educate people. You're the best.
Well, you just let me know. I'll be happy to come on.
Hey, real quick, before we let you go, let everybody know how to find you. All your socials, we'll tag you on all the social stuff and all that. But you're great at what you do. You're entertaining, you're fun, and you're a great guy to hang out with. So let everybody know. Thank you.
If you're going to see me on Facebook or Instagram, it's at James Hong Golf. Real simple. And I know this is for tour coaches. So just to let everyone know, the tour players are all U.S. Kids Golf Tour, junior tours, right? So
yeah,
tour coach.
No, I mean, this is about making people better.
Yep.
Right. And my mission, I guess, is like, I just want to expose people out there to the people that I think are the very best in the world at helping people get better at golf and that have a passion about it. I've been around you so many times. Your passion for what you do and your love for what you do supersedes everything else. In fact, more maybe than anybody else I've ever been around. And I have such a deep respect for what you do and how much you love doing it. And it's catchy. Like, it makes you look. I just been teaching all day, came in. I did have maybe 2 glasses of wine before doing this. But like, I get fired up talking golf with you. You're great at what you do, and you're great for the game. And man, I appreciate you taking time for me.
No, thank you. This has been a great honor to be on your show. Thank you very much.
We got to do it again, Honger.
Definitely.
We need to do one live. We're going to do one live in person together with both of us drinking wine together.
Oh, you got it.
You're the best, Honger.